And without further ado, let's stand up and start our event with the Pledge of Allegiance, just like any Toastmaster meeting, right? Here's the flag right here. So I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's a great afternoon to be here today because this auditorium is filled with wonderful audiences and especially the extraordinary Toastmasters that's judging themselves. And by that, I don't mean the exercise warm-up stretches that they do before the intense performance, but who knows, coming up here and speaking in front of an audience can be a very intense performance. So stretching might make sense there in that case. But by stretching, I mean they are stretching beyond their normal club meetings. They take an extra step further and challenge themselves to speak in a familiar environment and commit their time to prepare an extra speech for this silent contest event. Thank you so much. Let's give our speaker a round of applause. Once upon a time, there was a quiet little boy who hardly had any friends. He was special because he was not sociable. Oftentimes, he would sit in the corner of the classroom all alone because he felt he should never speak. People will never understand my accent, he thought. They will only look at me and think I'm an alien. He can barely utter a word in front of a group of people. His confidence and self-esteem were low. So when he grew up, he decided to twist his fate by fighting the witch of eternal silence within him by joining Toastmasters. Shaken but determined, nervous but tenacious, fearful but purposeful, he carried his hatchet, the icebreaker, with the stubborn mind of slaying the witch of eternal silence in the battlefield of a Toastmaster lectern. The Toastmaster lectern. So then he started to fight. But then he was really nervous. He heard a wave of supportive cheers from his fellow Toastmaster that lifted his spirit in vigor. And he started to utter a few words. My name is Nhien Chau. Those words were so inaudible and weak. The witch of eternal silence laughed, ha 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 ha, as his deflated neck bounced up from her dark, thick armor. Thank you for the little scratch, but now my hands are starting to itch. She reached for her bag and pulled out a long whip. She ignited with magical flame and slashed at the terrified young man, pushing him through the doors, the walls, and mile away into the desert. And his icebreaker swung out of his hand and landed into the water in the nearby oasis. To his surprise, the water started to move in circular motion and form a whirlpool. A woman slowly emerged from the water. Her white hair and the wrinkle on her face displayed wise knowledge with age. I am Goddess Erica. Did you just drop this competent combat hatchet, also known as the CC hatchet? Stunned, the young man honestly replied, no. Immediately, a magical beam emitted from the CC hatchet and hit his head. In a flash, he was teleported back to the Toastmaster lectern. This time, naturally, as if Goddess Erica had imbued magical power over him about the CC hatchet, he started to speak. His speech was organized. His body spoke. His voice varied. And his persuasion was powerful. And finally, his story was inspirational. he felt that he had mastered all 10 deadly moves from the CC hatchet. Fulfilled, he returned to the oasis and asked Goddess Erica for more advices. This time, Goddess Erica pulled out something even more lucrative and said, "Did you drop this advanced combat bazooka, also known as the ACB?" Catching on, the young man quickly replied, "No," and opened his arms as wide as he could. Goddess Erica smiled and said, "Now, follow your heart." And she waved her magical wand over him. And instantly, he was teleported back to a contest stage with over 150 people in the crowd waiting eagerly for him to speak. This time, he carried the CC on one hand and the ACB on the other shoulder. Determined, he performed one of the most spectacular dancing laughs on the stage. The audience roared with laughter as his spirit soared. The roaring was so loud that the wish of eternal silence body armor cracked right open. When he ended his speech with a strong conclusion and a meaningful message, the audience sent out a wave of thunderclap from heaven. Boom! The wish of eternal silence had vanished. Victorious, he went back to Goddess Erica and said, "I have defeated the wish of eternal silence and won my confidence. The most valuable treasure I have ever found in my Toastmaster journey." Is this the end now? Goddess Erica brought forward the icebreaker and said, "You have done well and follow your heart. Now pass this icebreaker to others and help them find their passion in public speaking and help them find their most valuable treasure in their Toastmaster journey." With that, Goddess Erica slowly submerged and disappeared under the gentle water. Fellow Toastmasters and friends, my fairy tale story may end here, but another chapter of my Toastmaster journey has just begun. Helping other people find passion in public speaking and encouraging other fellow Toastmasters to participate in a speech contest, that's easy. I can do it. Oftentimes, when we think of fairy tale, we think they will never come true. But if you take the first step, just like the first icebreaker speech in my fairy tale, one day you will find your own Toastmaster fairy tale comes true, and we all shall slay the wish of eternal silence within us. And that's why I wanted to host this event today, in this silent speech contest event. Daddy Garcia, duty, honor, country.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Butcher, murderer, drunk. Those were the words used to describe this man here. This picture shows that man from the porch in his younger days. A man with a determined and resolute face. This is General and 18th President of the United States, Ulysses Simpson Grant. He is the man who saved the Union through sheer, dogged determination. It is said that he had a look of a man who was determined to drive his head through a brick wall, and they were afraid that he would do it. Grant had an average childhood, and he would graduate middle of his class from West Point. He would serve during the Mexican-American War and have a decade-long career in the military. He would resign his commission as a captain under a cloud of unfortunate circumstances. He would spend the better part of the next 10 years in what historians would describe as a decade of despair, living with his father-in-law, and eventually he would move to live with his parents. Grant would find a job working under his younger brother. At the beginning of the Civil War, Grant would try to re-enlist in the regular army, but they would not take him. He would have to enlist as a volunteer. He would quickly rise through the ranks to become commander of the armies for the Union. He was the fourth in a long line of generals who were unable to succeed. Our first general, nicknamed Fluff and Feathers. He would step down early in the Civil War. Next, General McClellan, known as Young Napoleon. He was full of pride and arrogance. He was a great organizer, but he was unwilling to fight. Next, we have Old Bug Eyes, General Halleck. He was a great intellectual mind, but he moved at a snail's pace. His goal was 1 mile every day. Enter General Grant. He was the fourth general-in-chief to be promoted by President Lincoln. He was chosen because he had determination, he had persistence, he had the will to fight to save the country. He had duty, honor, and he believed in his country. This battle right here depicts the first encounter that Grant would have with General Lee, the Battle of the Wilderness. It was brutal, it was horrible, full of carnage. More men died from the fires because of the dense forests in the woods than actually died from gunshots. It was a stalemate, and Grant matched Lee punch for punch. But two important things happened that day. First, up until then, the previous generals, every time in an encounter in a battle with General Lee, they would turn back, they would quit while they were ahead. The generals were not persistent. And Grant, he gave the order to go forward after Lee. And the men from the very front of the lines began to cheer, and the cheers began to go all the way to the rear end. And you would wonder why men would be cheering in the middle of this carnage with death all around them, fire and smoke. They were cheering because they finally had a general who was willing to fight and press forward. A man who believed in honor in his country. The second important thing that happened was there was a young reporter that worked his way through the crowd, and he began to find his way to General Grant and said, General, I will see President Lincoln tomorrow. Do you have a message for me? Yes. Tell the President that no matter what, there will be no turning back. Finally, the men had a general who would fight. It is July when this picture was taken. Grant is sitting on the porch. He is wrapped and he is covered to stay warm. He is writing. He is writing because he is now broke, bankrupt, having lost all his money in a Ponzi scheme. The hero of the war between North and South is fighting one last battle. He is dying now, diagnosed from throat cancer. During the war, he had smoked one too many cigars. He has just months to live, but he can write and he can tell a story to save his family. Enter Mark Twain. An unlikely friend, Twain has approached Grant with an offer. He wants Grant to write his memoirs. Twain will publish and even pre-sell the books. It is an unlikely turn of events, but Twain and Grant are unlikely men in that they have something to offer each other. Their friendship produces two of the greatest works of American literature. Twain was a catalyst for Grant to write his memoirs, and Grant was a catalyst that helped Twain to finish writing Huckleberry Finn. Twain started writing Huckleberry Finn in 1876. Writing the first 16 chapters, Twain stops. He has writer's block. 8 years later, Twain meets Grant. and is inspired, and in a flurry finishes writing Huckleberry Finn in 1884. Grant would pass away in 1885. His memoirs would sell 312,000 copies in 3 years. Twain would hand a check to Grant's wife for $200,000 in February of 1886. In total, Julia would receive over $400,000 in royalties. Over 1.5 million people lined the streets for his funeral procession. The procession spanned a mile long. I don't believe that many people would come to pay respects to a man that was called a butcher, a murderer, or a drunk. But that is how history records Grant today. And at the time of Grant's death, he was held in even higher regard than Lincoln. The sentiment would change in the early 1900s, and Lincoln would gain in prominence, and the memory of Grant would be pushed back. However, Grant is immortalized in this statue guarding our nation's capital. Grant was a man who believed in duty, honor, and country. He was a man who saved the Union. Mr. Toastmaster.
The title of his speech is A Family Checklist for Patient Care in ICU. Dr. Rahul Kashyap is an award-winning public speaker. He's a seasoned Toastmaster for past 6 years. He has achieved ACS and ALB and currently serves as Vice President for membership at Rochester Suburban Toastmasters. Today, we would like to talk about the third leg of patient care triad of physician, nurse, family. How can a checklist for family help them with day-to-day proceeding and much more? Help me invite Dr. Kashyap.
Good afternoon. Before I start, let me ask a question. How many have you been or a family member has been to ICU or a hospital setting in your lifetime? Almost everyone. That doesn't mean that we were there, but at least we know somebody in our family or friends who were there. It's a very important topic. My fellow Toastmasters, dear friend and guest, today I'll be talking about how a checklist for family members in ICU can help our patient. This is not a checklist I'll be talking about that where they can go and eat, where they can go and take a nap, or any other thing. This is a checklist I'll be talking about that they can use it to be part of patient's care in ICU. Before I go any further, let me talk about a few things. Number one, that in ICU, if you've ever been there as a patient or a family member or just a friend visiting somebody else, there's a lot goes on there. It's a complicated environment, it's a very stressful environment for patient and family members or their loved ones. That being said, there's a rounding happens in ICU. I don't know how many of you know about rounding. I'll just back on a couple of sentences. In some institution, physicians and nurses and resident trainees, they all sit down in one back room and they talk about patients' condition and they plan for patients day to day. That is called rounding as well. In older days when I was getting trained, we go from room to room, look at the patient, touch, feel, talk, listen, and make the plan as well. At Mayo Clinics, we do both the things. In other institutions, they have a mix of these two things. Initially, the rounding started when they used to kick out patients' family members outside the room or from ICU. Now, in the past few years, they started bringing them back. They want the patient's family to be part of those rounding as well. And that's help that says in that facility. Second one I want to talk about is best practice medicine. What happens when some new discovery happens somewhere else? It takes 5 to 7 years for those new technologies, new medications, new devices, or new way of practicing coming to our ICUs or actually doing that part. A checklist approach in ICU started by Peter Pronovis in Michigan, Dr. Peter Pronovis in Michigan. He started saying, we should have a checklist in operating rooms, in ICUs, and those has tremendous results. But those checklists are mostly used by doctors, resident, fellows, or healthcare team. Today, I'll be talking about something new, or probably the third phase of that piece is having a checklist for family members, so they are equal partners in patient care. Let me give more elaborate on the checklist process. Nobody likes checklist. But imagine when you go to Walmart or Hy-Vee or any grocery store, and if you're not using something on your phone or this paper list, you tend to forget things. I have been there, I have done that. Once you go back home, your spouse reminds you, oh, you forgot that, you forgot this, and you're like, shoot, I should have a checklist for myself. I've seen people, they have this big long list paper checklist, which is perfectly okay having something on an iPhone and a smartphone. So we do use checklists in our day-to-day life. Let's even take a step back. Whenever I don't use a mental checklist before getting out home, that ID or bag check, keys check, my wallet check and phone check, I'm going to forget one of these things once I come out, and I have to come back and pick up one of those things. So we have done that, not only for groceries, for our day-to-day, or starting our day as well. ICU and OR and healthcare field, they have done these pieces. For those who are wondering what does ICU mean, my apologies, it's intensive care unit where the sicker patients get to get admitted after operating rooms or in general after an emergency room or the war. Now, coming back to my third point, the family checklist. What can it consist? How it could be useful that I'm talking about this checklist used in grocery centers. I'm talking about this checklist that I or many of us use every single day. But what is this family checklist? Our family checklist could be as identical to a checklist a doctor and nurses use in modern day medicine today. To give an example, really sick patient. I'm talking about a patient who's really, really sick. A patient who cannot speak. A patient who has a tube down his throat, which is not only causing discomfort, but medications are given to keep him calm. He's passed out or she's passed out. Nobody knows how does this patient look when he or she is normal. The family members, the loved ones, they're the only one they know it. So a checklist the physicians and the doctors go through, they talk about, can we take this tube out today? They talk about, can we put down the volume of medications in drug low so patient is not gaining weight just because of fluids and medication and everything in. They have no idea how this patient looked like because patient is coming to ICU after the operating room or from emergency room when they were sick or things were done to them so they don't look as normal or healthy they were there. The families and loved ones can help doctors and nurses do their job when they're doing every single day. Checklist can consist of many different things. We in medical field could use from neuro and cardio and respiratory and all those medical jargons, but for family checklist, which we have proposed and we are studying right now, can be implemented in our ICU here in Mayo Clinic or otherwise as well. We can just talk about, what this patient's preference are, what your loved one's preference are. What get to know me things for the patient, what kind of movies he like, what kind of music he or she would like to listen to. Would he prefer to be put on mechanical ventilation or these life-saving devices for that long or not? So those things, the examples I gave you, I'm not going to go into that, just going through my 20-point checklist, what it should consist of it. To give you a gist, that a family checklist, which they can help during this early morning rounding the whole team, standing and making plans for them, they can ask some of those questions to say, how does my loved one's going to look like today, or what is your plan for asking him to turn off some sedation medication or some sleeping medication? What's the plan for him to take him out from this mechanical ventilation so we can go and attend the graduation next week or our anniversary 2 months or a month from now? We're talking about a checklist which is as simple as they can talk about what are the plans. Can he go home today or can he go to step-down unit in the floor area or not today? To wrap it up, today I talked about why it is important to have a checklist which is used by medical providers, but our family members can use it as well to promote the healthcare team and then teamwork there, and how it can help improve our patient. They can go home sooner, or they can go to nursing home rather than dying in hospital, and many other benefits. Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh my God, I am so excited to be here today, giving not just any speech, but this speech, number 9 from the Competent Communicator series, Persuasion Through Power. This is so amazing because this audience, you guys, you're not just anybody. You're Toastmasters. I know that right now, you're already evaluating the way I stand, the way I speak, the words I'm using, the cadence, everything, because you're active listeners. And I also know that I have to persuade you to do something. Now, I'm an honest guy, so I'm going to tell each and every one of you, I'm going to try to persuade you all to do one thing, to ask yourself one question. But before I do that, do we have any guests in the audience today? Anybody? I think we have one for sure. And are you a guest too? Pseudo guest. Well, I'm going to have to ask both of you to grant me one tiny little favor, one small indulgence, a mercy, if you will. This is a very targeted speech. It's targeted to Toastmasters, and you're not Toastmasters, so... Oh,
He's a
good.
Toastmaster. He's not getting out of this.
Well, good. Well, that's even better than I'm speaking to only one person. So I have to ask you, can I please use your imagination just for a moment? Thank you so much. I need you to imagine that in front of you is a Toastmaster International's membership form. It's filled out with all your information. The only thing that's missing is your signature. Now I need you to imagine signing your name on that line right now. By the power vested in me, by the last of the dodo bird, I hereby give to you a non-binding honorary membership to Toastmasters International, valid, mind you, through the entirety of this speech. Pretty awesome. Now, my fellow Toastmasters, that thing that I'm going to ask you to do is ask yourself one question, just one question. Why Toastmasters? When I say why Toastmasters, I don't mean why did you visit the club that first time? What are those really cool perks that bring you back to each and every meeting? Not even why you're here today. I want to know what your target skill is. Because Toastmasters International is a training institution. It's an educational program. And you know what's scary? Over 1/3 of our members drop out every year. Why? Why? This is a great educational program. Why are you leaving us? Are you so good that there's nothing left to be taught about being a leader? No. I think it's because we forget to ask ourselves, why Toastmasters? What is that target skill that I want that's going to keep me coming back to practice, to home, to get better at? There's a lot of skills to choose from. There's a plethora, a pantheon of powerful leadership skills that you can learn just by showing up. Now, notably, the most recognized is the ability to articulate one's thoughts to a group of one's peers in an open venue status from a position of implied or explicit authority. Put more simply, how to speak as a leader in public. But as Ralph Smeedley said, almost as important as the speaker is the evaluation. And the reason I think he said evaluation and almost is that as a speaker, you can only grow as well as your evaluator shows you and critiques you, gives you that really constructive criticism, because that's what you're learning as an evaluator. That's what you're working on. And as an employer in the real world, that's the most valuable skill this program's teaching you. Because you're not always going to be asked to give a speech to other people. No. But day to day, every single day, you need to coach your team to meet a business objective. You need to be able to look at a team member, fellow leader, maybe even your boss, and tell them what's going wrong and how we can fix it. But at the same time, point out what's good. Because no one likes being told that they're dirt. But we all know that we need to improve. And Toastmasters will teach you how to give that criticism by being an evaluator. Because as an evaluator, you are not just giving your opinion about the subject. You're not just talking about what the speaker said or didn't say. You have, and I hope each and every one of you grabbed when you came in, an evaluation form. I said I was doing number 9, and I was. And I gave each and every one of you a sheet. On there are the objectives I'm trying to meet. I might give you an amazing speech, but not meet those objectives. That means I failed. I'm done and out. And as an evaluator, it's your job to point that out to me because I need to grow. I will make those mistakes. And this is the safe and supportive environment that I need in Toastmasters to do that, to grow. So my fellow Toastmasters, I don't have time to tell you about all the awesome leadership skills you can learn because you have it as an officer, an entirely new plethora of skills. And on top of that, the district and division levels, there are so many leadership skills. I could talk for days about it till I was blue in the face. But that doesn't matter because you have to pick one. You have to make a target. You have to have a targeted technique you're after. Because just like a GPS won't work until you put in coordinates, this education program won't work until you pick a target. So my fellow Toastmasters, the question I need you to ask yourself is, why Toastmasters? Mr. Toastmaster.